Hey, what's going on?
Keep going or stay right here?
Just up till you getting your burger. You can't get your burger from a mile away. How you doing, brother? What can we do for you?
I just came to get air in the tires.
We moved it to the back. See where the yellow post is?
Yeah.
You'll go right behind the building, and he'll take care of you.
Okay, man. Thanks a lot. All right.
country club with the help of Rick Casey, a professional driver, to see what it's like relative to some of the sports cars in this segment. And then we're going to just talk through, does all of this work? So let's get started. The Touring that I'm in right now, as tested price, is around $144,000, and the sedan is not far behind. This is a vehicle, when you look at it, you're going to basically preference this out the way that you want it. You're going to build it to order. I'm a huge fan of the fact that we've added a whole bunch of different paint colors to this. You can get yellows, you can get the green on the sedan that we have, or this frozen color matte paint. I feel like they've finally gotten a good grip on the fact that if you're spending a lot of money, you want a really interesting paint color, and it gives these cars so much personality. Let's start with kind of the form factors. The sedan is kind of the tried and true body style for the M5 of this generation. It's got a pretty usable trunk. The interior is very spacious. You feel like there's a lot of room to grow in it. The wagon is kind of the big sell here because everybody's been begging for like an M3 and M5 wagon. We finally have it. What it allows you to do is have real SUV or CUV cargo space. And compared to like the iX I'm driving, I feel like in many cases the hatch in this thing is far more usable. The depth is great, although the load floor is, a little bit higher. You can get everything in here. This can be a do-it-all, everyday, like supercar sedan thing. The interior space is kind of a mixed bag. At around $140,000, there's things about this that, I don't know, it kind of drives me crazy in some bits. There's so much shiny, like, plastic on here from the circus lighting that's in here. The LED light strip that goes across the whole dashboard and the door, it's very, very reflective. The lighting is quite overbearing and it looks cheap. Just, even though there's geometry underneath it, you know it's plastic. It's not like crystal. The carbon fiber, it constantly has been blinding me as I've driven this more and more. And even just, you can see on the camera, I'm constantly trying to block the reflectivity off of it. Everything else is kind of like standard 5 Series and what you're seeing across all the model lineup with the threaded screen on the dashboard. It's kind of more shrunken down here, doesn't stick up too much, but it definitely looks generic when you look at all the other BMWs that are doing the same thing. While the dashboard is quite smaller in this car, which is good, there's not a lot of wasted space, I think the audio system suffers here quite a bit more than the other models. The Bowers & Wilkins here really does test more like a Harman Kardon system, despite the better speaker quality in there. Regardless of how you tweak the EQ, it just basically has a generic 3D audio setting that you get pretty much on the Harman Kardons. And again, it sounds very similar to that with a little bit more brightness. If you like bass, it definitely has more punch. There's an elevation there. Everything else about the 5 Series is very standard stuff, with excluding some of the M seats and the M buttons on the steering wheel, which are amazing because you can kind of configure this the way you want. Jack at M2 in kind of like drift mode, rear wheel drive. I had M1 in kind of like the sport mode with the softest suspension setting, and the seats are fairly comfortable. They have coolers, but no massage on here. And the place where you put your phone and your drinks, everything is very, very well laid out, including the door storage is pretty good for a sedan of this era. And then the software experience is a little bit different than what you get on the traditional BMWs because it adds so much configuration for the drive modes. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this during the drive, but because they allow so much software configuration for the M modes in here and your different settings, I get the feeling that they threw the kitchen sink at configuring all of these systems, and there's so much going on here combined with the way that the UI is, the last iteration of this UI before they go to the next generation. There's just so many menus, it's so inundating. I feel like they can consolidate a lot of this down, but I do have to give them props for giving you the ultimate in customization for all the drive mode stuff. Some brands just lock you out of it. This brand gives you way too much. But overall, this is standard 5 Series stuff. We're going to go into the shop and we're going to talk about some of the things that the engineers have explained to us about the way this car was set.
So my wife got me this weird new kitchen knife as a Christmas gift. God, I love her. At first, I thought it looked like a Viking sword because it looked so massive compared to my other kitchen knives. I didn't understand how it would change my cooking experience. But I figured I've already wasted thousands on dollar store knives, so I might as well give it a try. But after using it once, I could not believe the experience. It ended up being the most incredible Christmas gift I ever got. I've always enjoyed hosting barbecue parties and feeding everyone, but now, this just takes that to a whole new level. That's how ecstatic I am when I'm using this knife. This Kumina knife can work through any type of meat, chicken, or fish, like they're all made of soft butter. I think it comes from its pure carbon steel blade, so it stays razor sharp and durable. And the best part is I can use my knife to do other tasks, like scooping up diced vegetables or cracking open a coconut. So if you or a loved one are thinking about getting a Kulina knife, now is the time. I heard the company is running an early bird Christmas sale for the next few days. Click the Shop Now button below to get a big discount on your order, especially if you're looking for a perfect gift. Their bundles could save you a lot. Check out their best sellers before they sell out. And sure, maybe you don't use kitchen knives as pro chefs often do. But what about your dad, grandpa, brother, husband, or boyfriend? Imagine their reaction to opening your gift on Christmas morning and realizing they now have one of the coolest looking knives ever. Wouldn't that be worth it? As this is a limited time sale, I can't guarantee that it will still be available when you watch this video. But you can check by clicking the Shop Now button below.
So before we have Britt take this out to Autobahn Country Club to set a lap time and we drive it and everything, we need to give a quick, brief summary of what these cars are and why they are the way that they are, Jack. So hit me with some of the technical stuff.
All right, let's get the controversial bit out of the way. This thing is very heavy now. If you get a sedan or a wagon, it is north of 5,000 pounds. The wagon's like around 5,500 and the sedan is a couple hundred pounds less than that. Well, it still maintains almost a 50-50 weight balance. Mass is a real thing, and you cannot defeat physics. And the reason for the weight is the fact that it is now a plug-in hybrid. There is an electric battery pack in this thing that allows it to do some miles on pure EV, but the reason it's a plug-in hybrid has to do with Euro emissions. This is a German-centric product. It's built by German engineers. It's built for its home market. And in Europe, if you want a high-power V8, due to the laws, you need it to be a plug-in hybrid for the emissions, and that's where this mass comes from. If you want the M5 to be a V8, it has to be plug-in hybrid. It's purely that simple.
And I think there's a disconnect now that we spoke to many different engineers from around the world. We're very lucky to have that opportunity. You realize right away, from an American perspective, or from United States, we think we're the center of the universe and every product should be catered to us. Well, I still feel that way. I would love these cars to be more
CT5E Blackwood. They don't sell in Europe. They sell it here. Supercharged V8.
Yeah,
but it's done by an American company.
Yeah.
BMW is not an American company.
Yes, and they don't share our same philosophy on a lot of that. But regardless of that discussion, there's only one thing I want to say about the engineering part of it is there was an interview done with one of their executives, and they were very tiptoeing around the weight. And they said, well, what do you think about the weight? And they said they were really surprised at how much it weighed when the whole car came together. So I think that they're struggling internally with how to sort out all of these different systems that you're now going to talk about, so we have a better understanding of what goes into this.
All right, so this is on Clar, and something to bring up, unlike the M2 and M3, the M5 is not really a track car. Yes, it's used as safety cars in different race series, but BMW knows the vast majority of owners will never, ever, ever drive their M5 on a racetrack, but it still has to be capable of doing it. So they take the latest iteration of the G generation of 5 Series built on Clar, which is a platform that has to be a plug-in hybrid, a full EV, and a regular internal combustion sedan. And then they throw a bunch of body structure changes to make this as rigid as possible. Increase the local stiffnesses in the suspension through shear plates. It's double wishbone front, double wishbone rear, or multi-link rear. Everything's aluminum. You get adaptive M shocks that are unique, along with all the control arms for this thing that have better stiffness than the regular regular 5 Series. You have unique spring rates. You have giant brakes that can either be steel or carbon ceramic. We have a EBB module by Continental because there's regen built into this because of the battery pack. You have like an under 20 kilowatt hour battery pack that lives in this thing, and you have a total system power output of over 700 horsepower. It's like 717 and like in the mid 700s for torque. That power split is just under 600 horsepower, comes out of the V8. It's a twin turbo V8 of the S series that you've seen in the past, obviously modified for this PHEV. output, and then you have a single electric motor that lives in the 8-speed gearbox that provides the rest of the power. When it comes to other systems, you don't have active sway bars, but you do have rear steer in this car, you have adaptive shocks, you have an end differential in the back, and you have a bunch of wizardry to get this thing to be both somewhat compliant on the street. It is definitely on the stiffer side. You can thank the mass for that. Because it's so heavy, to get the desired ride frequency of the car, they have to increase the spring rates. So it's definitely on the more firm side of things that should bushings as well to keep the body more rigid. And that's where you're at. You have an all-wheel drive that can go rear-wheel drive, super sedan / somewhat track car plus PHEV. It's all of these things that it has to be.
There is a lot that goes into this car. I mean, we could sit here probably for hours and talk about the additive solutions they put on here, and they've just piled it on here. It's just like, do you want more gravy on your mashed potatoes? And it just keeps coming and coming. And I'll be very curious to see what Britt's interpretation of this car as he spins up a lot here.
You know, a lot of people think that in order to conceal carry, you're going to need a tactical belt and a set of jeans. Well, I'm here to tell you
Jr. Britt is our hot shoe. He's been in basically all of our lap time based videos at this point, so I'm sure you've seen him before. With that said, he just went out and set a lap time on relatively fresh tires, at least before we drove it on track, in the M5 sedan. It was in the 90-degree range, and the car ran a 133.61, which puts it between, on our lap board, a Mustang Dark Horse manual on the handling package tire, and a manual Supra on RE71 RSs. That is a very, very respectable lap time for something that is as big as the M5. And you hit a top speed of over 130 miles an hour. It is a very, very, very fast car. That said, walk me through your thoughts, acknowledging, of course, that this isn't a race car.
Yep, it's not a race car, it's an M5. I am personally a huge fan of the M5. Growing up, grew up around the era of the rod-bearing V10. And, I had to say it. And I just think the M5 is a cool look and functionality in the car market. So, and they have sweet engines all the time. But with this car, I want to talk about the power it makes is huge. I think that's what makes the lap time so high up on the chart. I don't believe it has anything to do with the way it handles through the corner or the corner speed it could roll through. No, I think the tires were like screaming stop. So I think it's a tire destroyer of a car, but fast. Maybe for a lap, but the whole time I told you, just felt like I was just burning money in the form of tire rubber, because it's heavy and it's got all-wheel drive and carbon brakes. So.
I guess with that, so we've talked about the mass. Obviously, it's a lot of power. Something Mark and I and you've complained about in the past is the fact that modern M cars don't have a lot of feel. So because it doesn't have a lot of feel, what does that do to the handling of the vehicle?
Yeah, so talking about like the lineage of the M5, I think over time it just lost feel. It's unfortunate because I see it on the racetrack with the electronic power steering with multiple M products, and just the steering rack is essentially zero feedback, like actually zero feedback, and it's really hard to know where you're at in the corner without having the feel of the slide occurring in your hands, which is more typical for driving. So,
do you think that as well causes some of the vagueness of when to get on the brakes and how to deal with the actual in and out of the corner as well?
Absolutely, yes. You're losing some of the sensation that you lean on in order to make an adjustment mid-corner, if that makes sense. So you're feeling stuff through the seat, your feet, legs, toes, and your hands. But if the steering is essentially connected to a servo and not to the tie rod, it's and they don't even try to sort of emulate some sort of feedback. I don't think. I think it's just this is where you turn.
Like a racing sim, I feel like
it's like a sim. Yeah.
But I think an actual racing sim has more steering feel than this car has.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure, I can say that for sure. So it was challenging but fast to drive.
Something that honestly doesn't matter, despite this being an M5 video.
Yeah, I got a conference call, so let's get this over with.
expecting a 5,300 pound car are here, but not necessarily as prevalent as you may think. The electromechanical systems, the rear steer, the dampers, the all-wheel drive system do their best to get this thing to go around this track. And based upon the lap time that Rick Casey Jr. just did around here, I'd argue that, at least on paper, it's managed to pull off a really, really impressive feat. A very, very quick lap time in a car that weighs more than 2 Miatas combined.
You know what I see coming out behind the car?
What?
Money.
Yes.
All the consumables
Yes.
that are just leaving behind you.
The drivetrain, the E-motor, and the twin-turbo V8 is incredibly proficient. These brakes, I feel incredibly bad for them. You know, they're brake-by-wire, they're very, very digital, and while they are effective, I would argue probably after about 2 laps, you would destroy these poor rotors.
So yeah, and really this is the counterintuitive point of these cars, and I know a lot of people make the argument, well, you don't feel the weight, they hide the weight. But the thing is that, you know, with all of this weight comes the stress of, oh my god. The world went black for me. Then Jack hit continue as he tried to hog-tie that pig over and over again. We always argue over business philosophies. We spent hours testing horrible suction mounts for his iPhone. He didn't want his iPhone flying off his dashboard in his Porsche, potentially damaging his deviated stitching. So he started testing my favorite Australian design mounts in my Honda, a vehicle he claims is inferior to German technology. With the quad lock system, you can reliably twist your phone into place to make sure your iPhone 73 is safe. I prefer the mag lock system, which uses magnets to secure the device in place, which reduces the wear and tear on my fragile wrists. Jack does not trust wireless chargers. He says they could be remotely stealing his identity, and prefers the security of charging with his high-output 12-volt quad-lock charger and the iPhone-branded USB-C cable. I prefer the wireless charging magnetic adapter. It also helps to keep my phone leveled up when I am taking selfies for OnlyFans. After making $50 million last year, I am planning on buying every quad-lock solution for my family and friends. If you are not in the same league, I am a philanthropist and want to help. Use code SAVAGEGEESE10 to get 10% off of your next purchase.
Jesus Christ.
No. This is probably one of the most ridiculous in terms of acceleration vehicles we've driven outside of an electric car. It is unbelievably fast, and you know, I joked around about the previous generation M5 keeping up with an Atom 3S in a drag race and then some. This car is at least 10% faster.
At least in the real world.
In the real world, it is fast all the time. And one of the problems with the previous generation M5 wasn't the fact that it wasn't fast. It didn't really need all that speed, just dynamically. It was a bit awkward and strange. So now you've doubled down. You've given this more speed, which it really doesn't need, although it is comical. But you've also added a whole host of other things we talked about in the shop. So let's talk about that.
So we're in the real world right now, and as we talk about in the track section, this is what matters when you own an M5. Ain't nobody tracking their, in the wagon's case, 5,500-pound car around a racetrack. And if they do, like Britt talked to me about, it just actively feels like you're abusing the poor vehicle and throwing away money.
Yeah, 100%.
So what does an M5 need to do in the real world? It needs to be very, very quick. It needs to cover highway miles at an expedient rate and it needs to be a good daily, right? It needs to do everything. That's the M5's mission, and it needs to be big. And I think what this car does great, which we can't demonstrate easily, is the highway driving, right? At north of 80, 90 miles an hour,
All right, man. You take care, man.
When you're driving it at the limit. So it's lost somewhere in between of what is its core mission here. And I think the core mission of what they were trying to do was an engineering exercise of how much could they physically. Clearly, this is a car that is incredible for how much they packed in here and what it does. It does deliver on. Does it have an amazing twin turbo V8? Yes. Does it have an amazing gearbox? Yes. Can you go in two-wheel drive where it's losing the rear end? Yes. Can you go into a stable four-wheel drive setup where it's more front biased? Yes. I mean, it does everything. It does like a pure EV mode. I mean, it's incredible.
You can pull away from your house in complete silence.
Yes.
The electrification around town does a good job, and some of the stop-start functions, the smoothness of this car. I think my two sort of negative points are, there's this conversation in some of the
talk to you more, and all of this stuff doesn't really add up to making it a better car. Even the plug-in hybrid stuff, you can argue, well, you get 30 miles of range, but it's not like an EV. It's not like my iX where I can just go flat out and feel full electric torque. It's limited because it's only delivering a marginal amount of what a regular electric car would do, and then it's got to kick on the V8 to give you the full power. So it's not like a pure electric car experience. It doesn't give you like full electric car range. It's kind of hampered the V8 because it's so heavy and there's so much mass to this thing. It's going to chew through its consumables because of the weight aspect of it, and then the engineers have to overwork every corner of this car to get it to feel more natural, and it still doesn't feel natural. It still feels like everything's going on in the background, and that's a really hard sell for me on a car like this. Yes, it met its targets. If you're looking down an engineering brief and like it hit everything, it did, but that doesn't mean it's a good car to drive and a good experience. And I think they're gonna have to strip back some of this, much like I talk about in home audio. A lot of like home, it's the analog, more minimalist. There is technology in the background, but when you look at it, it's not, it's not glowing circus in your room. Yeah. It's like one dial, really clean, purity, and it's like design. And cars are need to go back to that. And I think BMW in a vehicle like this really needs to find their way back to some middle ground.
I think, one of the things that German engineers probably at least to sell this to us, is I'm sure German road is going to be unique on the Autobahn. This thing's spectacular.
Yeah.
Glass, smooth roads. You can put in and out of big city centers in Europe where you need the plug-in hybrid part. But in the U.S., our pavement is trash. Yeah. It is trash. And outside of leaving your neighborhood, the PHEV part of a big, fast sedan doesn't come in very often.
No, it doesn't. And I know we're talking about it from a very North American-centric viewpoint, but we drive every car. Yeah. A lot of development engineers don't get to drive every car, and we drive every car out here. And it's really hard for me to just accept that this car was just basically German transplanted to the United States. I think there's more work to do here if we want to keep this going. It's got to be simplified. But
we're not the only journalists to say this.
Yeah, we're not the only ones. It needs more refinement out of this car and less complication, Jack.
All right, Mark. So with that, goodbye.
On the M5s, and first off, thank you to Casey for driving this flat out and giving us his feedback along with Autobahn Country Club. Autobahn Country Club is a home track. They support a lot of local drivers, people that are members there, and also those who want to learn how to drive. If you want to learn in your own car or in one of the driving schools, definitely hit them up and sign up. They also have a karting school, which is superbly run. If you want to get into kind of the fundamentals and increase your driving IQ, the karting school is great. And there's just so many opportunities there. And obviously for us, having the ability to do some of these cars that are insanely capable and driving them and taking that off the street and combining them both is amazing. So again, Autobahn Country Club is a key to this. Let's talk about the M5s. I, myself, and everybody involved in this video was very excited to get behind the wheel of these things. The touring including, because every enthusiast talks about how they want a wagon. They want a high performance, high horsepower wagon. And the takeaway from basically every single person that got out of this was confusion. Not because it's a bad car, but because we feel all that it's lost its vision of what it's trying to be. They have thrown the kitchen sink of technology at this, something that we've talked to other brands about. Sometimes when you try to do too much, you strip out the very good things that you're good at, and it gets drowned out. This car, in its previous iteration, where it was essentially a twin-turbo V8 with a very advanced all-wheel drive system, that was already on the edge of kind of losing some of its focus. This has just gone to the next level. It's big, it's heavy, it's overbearing, it chews through its consumables like you wouldn't believe. But at the same time, you've got to respect the fact that they've made all of this work mostly. They definitely need to go back and look at what they really want these M cars to be. Do they just want it to be an engineering exercise? Or do they want it to be something like the CT5V Blackwing we drove, where there's a lot lot of technology in it, but it's purity in design. Having a car that is just rear-wheel drive, manual transmission, V8, makes V8 noises, goes sideways, and is far more comfortable to drive. There's a purity in that is lost in this car and continues to get kind of thrown away in modern M cars. At least in the United States, I think there's a small subset of people that love this tech, and then the other purists are just, I don't know, we can take it or leave it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.